I don't take weekends off. Hello, my fam. Perez Hilton here, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your #1 source for everything It Ends With Us drama. It might not be front and center, but remember, before Justin Baldoni filed his lawsuit against the Yummy Chanteuse, he filed a lawsuit prior to that against the New York Times. While he is suing Blake Heard for $400 million, as well as her publicist and her husband, he is also suing the New York Times for a lot of money. $250 million to be exact. He's alleging that the newspaper defamed him and engaged in other shady behavior. Remember, the New York Times article detailed her initial complaint in California before filing a lawsuit in federal court in New York, and the article from the Times included all of these text messages and communications which his team claims were heavily edited. And they were. Because in his initial lawsuit, it included the full communications, most glaringly between his publicist and his crisis PR expert, where they were joking about some of the bad press that Delulu Lively was getting, but they also said, well, I didn't plant that. I can't take credit for that. That wasn't me. Very important context. In his lawsuit, he alleges that the Times cherry-picked communication and omitted context to mislead readers and twist the narrative in her favor. But the New York Times is fighting back and attempting to remove themselves from this narrative. The paper just went to court in New York to attempt to dismiss the libel suit against them. The documents claim, quote, the Wayfarer party's first amended complaint tells a one-sided tale that has garnered plenty of headlines. But the Times does not belong in this dispute. Over the course of their 224-page first amended complaint, plus an added 168-page timeline, the Wayfarer parties breathlessly tell their side of an ongoing Hollywood drama involving actors Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, the stars of the film It Ends With Us. The first amended complaint has to some extent achieved its obvious purpose. The Wayfarer party's story has been reported by countless news outlets during the last few weeks. What the first amended complaint has not done, however, is plead a viable claim against the Times. What the fudge? Let us continue. Notwithstanding the sound and fury of the first amended complaint, which has nothing to do with the New York Times lawsuit, plaintiffs attempt to assert claims against the Times for defamation, false light, promissory fraud, and breach of implied in fact contract fail as a matter of law. The bulk of the Wayfarer party's first amended complaint must be dismissed because it is an impermissible group pleading under Rule 8 of the federal... Okay, we don't need to get into legal jargon here. Let's get to the good stuff. Okay, here we go. In addition, the defamation claim fails because the sole alleged defamatory statement the Wayfarer parties managed to identify as actually having been published by the Times, that they orchestrated a smear campaign against Lively in retaliation for her complaining about sexual harassment, is unquestionably and absolutely privileged pursuant with New York Civil Rights Law 74. Is unquestionably and absolutely privileged? What? What? In any event, the defamation claim is insufficient as a matter of law because the challenged statement is protected opinion, and because the Wayfarer parties plead nothing but conclusory allegations regarding the Times' purported actual malice. That is not an opinion. That was stated as fact, that he orchestrated a smear campaign. And you provided alleged receipts, which were then proved to have been lacking. Plaintiff's remaining claims fare no better. The false light claim fails because blah, 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 blah. There are some other interesting arguments that the New York Times is making. In their lawsuit, they allege that the New York Times made little to no effort to investigate the veracity of Lively's allegations. The New York Times is denying that. The paper also argues that the public has an interest in learning about a filing, true or false, misguided or well considered, that is made to a public agency, which is what the Plantation Princess did. The New York Times also argues that Baldoni and parties cannot prove that the New York Times published their article with actual malice, and so on and so forth. But what's extra interesting to me is what the Princess of Evidenceless is saying about this move from the New York Times. In a statement, the alleged nose job recipient says, quote, "In its motion to dismiss, the New York Times correctly calls out Justin Baldoni's lawsuit for what it is, a shameless PR document that has no business in a court of law. For years, Baldoni urged men to listen and to believe women. But when a woman spoke out about his behavior, he and his billionaire backer, Steve Sorowitz, used a social media combat plan to scorch earth and try to bury and destroy her, along with the media who reports on it. These bullying tactics will not survive in court, and everyone should see their meritless claims for what they are." Now, I like to keep an open mind, and if you're a lawyer, I could use your input here. I don't understand why they even included the New York Times in this Lively and parties lawsuit. What was the rationale for that? And the New York Times sure is pretty sassy in their motion to dismiss. Listen to this. Throughout their blunderbuss complaint, I'm going to have to start using that word. Throughout their blunderbuss complaint, the Wayfarer parties seek to drag the Times into their larger feud with Lively. But the only thing the Times is in fact alleged to have done is engage in news gathering and publishing an article and video about the Wayfarer Lively dispute. I can't disagree with that. The Times continues, saying, despite the Wayfarer party's hundreds of pages of screen grabs, outrage, and rhetoric, this is a very simple case. The article is absolutely privileged as a fair report, and the Wayfarer party's defamation claim fails. As our motion shows, this case should have never been brought against the New York Times. Blake Lively raised serious concerns about the way she was treated on the set and after the movie's release. We did exactly what news organizations should do. We informed the public of the complaint she filed with the California Civil Rights Department, Mr. Baldoni's misbegotten campaign against the Times, questioning our ethics, attempting to discredit our reporting, filing a baseless lawsuit will not silence us. Baldoni and his parties are most likely to disagree with this all, but they have yet to respond to the New York Times motion to dismiss. Thoughts on this all? There's a lot to take in. Let's discuss in the comments section. I think that the Times should be dismissed from this lawsuit. What do you think? Let's have a kiki.